Tim Stewart of the U.S. Oil and Gas Association, the president, kind enough to join us this Saturday. How high is high, Tim? What do you think?
Well, high is too high for us to afford it, and that's a problem which we have. We're in the greatest, probably the most challenging energy crisis we've been in 50 years. As you said, diesel and gasoline prices are at all-time highs and inventories at all-time lows. And what did the administration do this week? What was their major energy announcement? It was to pull millions of acres of federal leases off the table and potentially trap billions of barrels into the ground. It's really frustrating. I mean, this administration has no strategy to help us get out of it. And frankly, all the actions they take are counterproductive to those of us who are trying to solve this problem.
You know, they come back at you, and we talked about this before, Tim, and say, well, we did open up some permits and leases to you guys. You didn't jump at them, and now you're whining that we're shutting down some extra ones that you weren't tapping anyway. What do you say?
Well, you know, the action this week was for offshore leases in Alaska and in the Gulf of Mexico. And those leases are different than trying to get 1,000 acres in Wyoming. They are multi-billion-dollar projects that take years and years to put in place. And the industry was very interested in those leases. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been nominated anyway. So I'm calling the White House and the Interior Department BS on this one. We are very much interested in it. They pulled it, and that's unfortunate.
Now a lot of them are saying that your industry is making, you know, a lot of money, and that it's an obscene amount of money. What do you say?
You know, we actually have to face this in the House of Representatives this week as the Democrats are pulling up what they're calling a price gouging bill. But the reality is, as you read through it, we have to be honest, it's a price control bill. Neil, as you read through that, they talk about giving the president the authority to determine what is unconscionably excessive pricing in the market. And that's frankly leaving the White House with the ability to tell us how much we can and cannot pay for a commodity. It's problematic because price controls, as you know, lead inevitably to shortages in the product or the commodity that you're trying to control, and that oftentimes leads to hyperinflation. And so what we say is, look, you have a better way of doing this. The question you should ask yourself in every action is this: if you're trying to address the energy crisis, will this action increase domestic production and provide relief to the American consumer? And if so, take the action. But if it doesn't, don't act on that. And so back to these leases, Neil, it was a horrible decision to make. It will continue to restrict our ability to develop domestic resources and will not provide any relief for the American taxpayer.
And we should point out, granting you a permit and/or lease doesn't mean that it's quickly approved. It might look and sound tempting, but they can still run you through the rigors just getting that all finalized. So where does this go in your estimate, given the political environment in which we're dealing, and prices still going higher? Could the very high prices and high interest rates we're seeing lead to the kind of slowdown that sadly brings on a recession? But the flip side is all these prices go down as a result. Is that what it's going to take?
Well, that's a good question. And the last thing anybody wants in their own market is a demand collapse. And I think the industry is very cognitive of that. So that's why we're racing to get as many rigs up in the air as we possibly can, to build out our infrastructure and to work around the regulatory obstacles that the White House is putting in place. Our goal is to be able to provide energy. And the challenge we have from the oil and gas perspective is that 83% of the energy produced is produced by independent companies who have no say in what the actual price at the pump is. We're like farmers, basically. We're price takers. And so blaming the independents for the cost of gasoline is like blaming a farmer who has sold his wheat for the cost of a loaf of bread in the supermarket. Our goal is to get as much product into the market as we possibly can, and the market will be able to work its way through it, and that's what we're hoping to do. Again, the worst thing in the world would be have a massive demand collapse like we had during the COVID period, because we've seen the challenges of infrastructure that come from that.
Indeed. Even OPEC is warning that this environment is going to lead to a big old slowdown across the globe, hurting them, hurting you, hurting everyone. So it's just a sign of the times. Tim Stewart, thank you very much for coming in. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Neil.